Okay. Welcome, welcome. I'm so excited, Kathy, that you could join me today because I've been so just impressed. Even years ago when we first met, I was so impressed. I thought, this is a woman who's gone places. And so I'm glad that we've been able to reconnect.
Thank you so much. I am so honored to be here with you, Tamara.
Thank you. All right. Well, we may have some people hopping on, but I know there's people that said they couldn't be here and want to watch later. So I think that we should go ahead and start the webinar officially. What do you think?
Sounds great.
Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. Can you see leadership outside the box slide, Kathy?
Yes, I
Awesome. Then technology is working, which is always such a blessing when I know how to make it work.
can. I understand that. I think that all of us can relate with that.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, so this webinar is called Leadership Outside the Box. And I think this is an important topic to be talking about right now because I really feel like we are needing leaders in all different areas and in all different forms and the ways that they show up. And this meeting is being recorded. So I'm Tamara Hurl, and I'm CEO of Wild Divine Retreat Center in Cascade, Colorado. I work as a nature-connected coach, and I'm also, sometimes people say, well, what do you do? And sometimes I just say, well, you could say that I'm a weaver because I really weave together experiences that I have found really support people in connecting with inner wisdom and on their spiritual growth journey. So I just weave those together and create experiences that help people transform their own lives and the world.
And I am Kathy Carter, and I consider myself to be a collaborative visionary and a passionate advocate of people and systems. I cannot just pick one area. There has been so many different areas and systems that I have advocated for and people as well. My experience is leading outside the box in education and child welfare and solving poverty. And I consider myself to be, usually I say that I'm a unicorn rider. And to me, a definition of a unicorn is a reality that does not yet exist, but it has the potential to change the world. And so I decided to embrace my unicorn riding self when I realized that I do have a lot of hope for working on leadership in a loving and kind way.
Kathy, that is so beautiful. I love your definition of unicorn rider and helping, possibilities that exist come into being. So thank you so much for doing the work that you do and for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
So we thought that a great way to start this conversation would be to just define what leadership is. So Kathy, what would you say, like, how do you define leadership? What is a leader?
Well, I define the word leader as someone who empowers others by creating spaces where people can authentically show up with their gifts and their challenges so that everyone is contributing in meaningful ways. A leader lights the path, but also participates and supports the team, understands what it's like for those who are serving on that level, and really listens to what others are saying and trusts those experiences.
Yeah. What a beautiful definition. Hey, we just had another person join us. Welcome, Tammy. You're just in.
I love your last name, Tammy.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Hold on a second. Oh, I'm not muted. Okay, cool.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Sorry about that. Sorry, it took me a few minutes to find the Zoom link. For some reason, I thought it, anyway, I thought it was going to be different, but I found it, so I'm here.
Good. Hooray. So one of your leadership qualities, Tammy, must be persistence.
Yeah, I'm definitely persistent, yes.
Nice, nice. Well, welcome. And we just got started. We were just doing introductions, and Kathy had just answered this question, what is a leader? So I'll give you a minute to get settled in, because I know it can be a little disrupting and unsettling to try to get connected. But then I'd like for you to answer that question. I'm going to answer it.
Okay.
So what is a leader? So I think of a leader as someone who sees things that either in their own life or in society or both that needs to be changed, and somehow finds the courage to act on that, not waiting for someone else to do it, but just thinking, okay, it's up to me. I'm going to step up and I'm going to try to create this change. And also, I think that leaders can see leadership qualities in others, kind of like what you said, Kathy, and they create a space where that person's leadership qualities and skills can be drawn out and developed and supported. So leaders foster leadership growing in other people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that definition, Tamara.
Nice, very nice.
Thank you. So how about you, Tammy? How do you define leadership? What's a leader in your mind?
Good question. To me, it's someone who creates a space so other people can not live up to their potential, create that space and allow, share their gifts and talents, and allow others to also share their gifts and talents, and to help develop and help to draw out their gifts and talents.
Nice.
And develop help them develop their own style.
That was really similar to what I said too, Tammy.
Oh, cool. I'll have to watch the recording and see it.
Right. And it's interesting because I think all three of us talked about creating space for persons to step into their potential and for their skills to grow. So I think we all share that belief.
I would add, it's creating a space that's safe, but also outside of the box, right? I mean, this is kind of outside of the box leadership, and it is, traditionally leadership hasn't been a place where it's been a safe space.
Right.
Yeah, in some instances, I agree. Yeah, definitely. Okay, great. Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts about the definition of a leader. Let's move on to our second question. Yeah, so how do you embody leadership? I know that I embodied leadership one time that stands out the most to me. And as I look back on it, it's kind of, I'm surprised that I did it, but I was in mid-level management at a community mental health center. And I just noticed people around me were really struggling. There had been so many changes in mental health that prior to that, in the early days, the staff were used to being able to work with people like for a month at a time, and then they would be discharged. And at this point, people were there for maybe 2 or 3 days, and they would leave, and then they would come back, and then they would leave. They called it the revolving door. But I noticed that they were really struggling, And I thought, how I really want to support everyone. So I found this book called The Artist's Way at Work. I don't know if any of you have seen the book, The Artist's Way. And I didn't even know that there was, I knew about The Artist's Way, and I was at the bookstore and was talking to this woman about what I wanted to do, so a worker in the store. And she said, did you know that there's one just specifically for work? I said, no, I didn't know that. So I adapted some of those activities and created this, I think it was a 14-week program for employees. It was called Inviting Creativity and Spirituality into the Workplace. And I had to go to the CEO. First, I went to my supervisor, and she was always so supportive. So she was like, yeah, go for it. And then I had to go to the CEO and get her approval, which was kind of scary for me. I had to kind of step into my courage. But she was also supportive and said, sure, you can go ahead and do it. I wanted to do it as part of the workday. And she wasn't going for that, but she did say, go ahead and do it on employees' lunchtime. So we did the program. It was amazing. The organization ended up winning an international award for bringing spirituality into the workplace because of that. Not just that, there were some other projects too, but it was so exciting to see that come into being. So what about the rest of you? How do you embody leadership?
I love that you did that. That is awesome. And I just wrote that down. I was like, the artist's way of work at work. I think that's a great, suggestion. For me, embodying leadership at work, I didn't even know I was a leader for a really long time. And I definitely wouldn't have claimed that if somebody would have told me, that I was. But what I noticed is the very first thing was validating the experience for me. Someone validated that and said, you're such a leader. And I really kind of thought about that, and I had kind of reflected on what a leader was. And I probably did some Googling of like what leader, what the definition was. And really kind of started reading more about leadership and really kind of came into that space of, like, I think that that I do those things. So one of those things for me with embodying was beginning to validate others that I saw, and then doing a lot of celebrating other people when I saw those. You think about child, education, like my background's in education, and so like, praising those behaviors that you see with in children. And I started thinking, like, what if I just use that with adults, because adults are just children with more experience in adult bodies, right? And but we all have those little kids inside of us. And so I started really just kind of celebrating that. And then when I saw problems, because I was working at the time in the intersection of child welfare and education. And so I saw a lot of problems with the child welfare system, pointing fingers at the education system pointing fingers at the child welfare system. And yet I was in this place of like, but we're all serving children, and we all want to be able to do the best job we can within the structures and the policies and the mandates that we, are working under. And so for me, it was trying to, at first, really beginning to help others see what these other alternative perspectives were, and helping and celebrating what they were doing, and telling and promoting the things that were being done within, the organization that I was in, to help with that. And so, and it was including, others' voices, and really listening to what other people, had to say, not just those that agreed with me, but those who did not agree, and really asking powerful questions, in a place of, hey, I really want to understand. I want to hear why this is a problem for you. I want to understand why you're so resistant to this piece. Like, what is this? Is there a policy there? Is there a staff issue there? What's going on? And what I noticed is that the the more curious I was, without being in a place of, pushing one way or another, the more people started to trust and open up to me, and they started coming to me around, hey, this is what we want, and this is what we think we should do, or here's somebody else who's also interested and wants to change this. And then it was really embodying that leadership was also just really about really having a lot of courage and being really present with myself. I had a Post-it note on my computer for the longest time that said breathe, deep breath. And so what I started realizing is that the more that I was able just to be present and to really breathe and to really be like, okay, what's going on here? The more I started realizing that I could see that path in that forest start to open up. And maybe I didn't see the whole path, but I would see this looks like a place to step. This looks like a solid rock that I could, take a step on. And then, then I would do the next right action. And then that next right action would lead me to seeing that next step. And then when I didn't know what to do, I paused and I just, I breathed and I just continued to do, some of those mundane tasks, that have to be done until I knew until that next place showed up. And it was not only that, but it was also about knowing when it was time to take that step, because sometimes that step would show up, but it wasn't the right time. And so, really asking myself, is this the right time? I'm going to give one of those pieces later on about how I knew if it was the right time or not.
Great. Thank you so much, Kathy.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Just a second. There we go. So I have not looked at myself as a leader. And I've been working with human design and the gene keys. And I've learned that through my design, I am an unconscious leader. So people look to me for leadership, and I did not ever consider, myself a leader. And I felt unseen and unheard most of the time because of how I project myself and how other people perceive me. And kind of like you were just saying, if I'm learning that if I wait for the right person, the right place, and the right time to speak my truth and to speak those leadership qualities, people will listen and it will be very helpful. And kind of like what you were just saying, the right time. If I do that, it's very helpful. If I don't, and if I speak, if I don't wait for the right person, the right time, and the right place, it's unheard. I'm unseen and unheard, and it's not helpful. It comes across as brash or harsh or things like that. So that's been very instrumental in my learning to wait, to be invited for my opinion, for my leadership, and waiting to take looking for what is the next right step, and realizing that people do look to me for guidance, and I can see that in the past. I can pull on memories of those times that people have looked to me for leadership, and I did not, when I wasn't considering myself, as a leader in any way. And being present, and really listening and really trying to understand. And I do find myself, when you guys were talking, memories were popping up into my mind of of those specific times where there was someone that was the right place, the right time, and the right person, and I just was ready to just tell them everything, it's like I wanted to imbue, share everything that I know. It's like, and everything that I've learned along the way, all the wisdom and that I've, come to gather through all these years. And then they just soak it up, and it's a beautiful, wonderful feeling to be able to assist in that way.
Thank you,
Beautiful.
Tammy, for sharing.
Yes,
I have 3 things that I wanted to comment on that. Is that okay?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. The first one was that you brought up a good point with leadership, that there's different styles, and that, depending on what you're doing and where you're at and what your own personality is and what you're comfortable with, depends on what that leadership style looks like, and so I think that, embracing your own personal brand of leadership style, you might gravitate towards one, but then really creating it to be your own. You missed when I talked, but when I introduced myself as a unicorn rider. And that was kind of me taking on my own leadership style. And to me, a unicorn is a reality that does not yet exist, but has the potential to change the world. And so my leadership style has a lot of hope in it. And the other thing that you had said was that, kind of looking at, if someone came to you and when they sought you out for the right time, or, were asking. And one of the things that came up for me, that is definitely something that has to be, that has to be respected. But also not to the point where we become, where we lose our power. And so one of the things that I noticed that I did a lot too around embodying leadership is that I did a lot of maneuvering behind the background and behind the scenes to advocate for myself, to be able to have a seat at the table, for people to ask me the questions, because at that time in that place, I was the expert around some of those pieces, but I wasn't getting a seat at the table. And so, that was part of that, is that in Tamara, you talked about the weaving. Yeah.
great.
Thank you very much. It's very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you both for what you shared. Things that struck me, Kathy, when you were talking about seeking to understand, it reminds me of Stephen Covey. That's something that he talks about in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I think that's so important. And then both of you talking about how noticing and following timing, divine timing as things unfold. It's sort of like, there was a book that I read, I don't remember the name of it, but it was like a person had a map and they were really frustrated because it only showed where they were right now. And they wanted to know where the end result was. But each time they took a step, then the next step would show up on the map. And I think that's part of what being a leader is. And I also like the idea of different styles of leadership. I know when I was in that mid-level management role, someone said to me that what I really like about your leadership style is that you're a quiet leader, one with great power, but very quiet. And so I think it's important just to honor our different leadership styles. So let's talk about this question. I think this is a really interesting question, and I'm curious to know what your thoughts are about the connection between leadership and spirituality. So Tammy, I would love it if you could share with us first what your thoughts are.
Yeah. Just a minute. I have to switch back and forth because I like looking at you, got your faces. I have to Good question. It's a lot of the things that we've just been talking about. I think it's just like the divine timing you were talking about, and the embracing your brand, expanding reality. I think it's all interlinked. To me, there's it's that infinite flow. It's that there's no disconnection. It's always connected. Yeah, I don't know. It's just one and the same. It's
That's
like
a great answer.
Right.
Thanks.
Yeah. And Tammy, maybe it also has to do with just being conscious of that connection.
Mm.
And also maybe intentionally calling forth that connection, or calling for it to be strengthened in a situation when you need it.
Like that. Yes. Nice.
And that's so true, Tamara. You know, I believe that we are, spiritual beings having a human experience. And sometimes that human experience, like, we forget that we are, spiritual beings, and that the other people that we're interacting with are also spiritual beings. And so to me, that leadership, that connection between leadership and spirituality is always trying to like come back to reminding ourselves that piece, that these people here, that my human self might disagree with them, or my human self might be like, I don't know where they're coming from, or I don't have, I'm not, feeling a connection here, but remembering that spiritual self is connected to everything that I'm doing, to everything to everybody that I am, working with and communicating with, and that there is something much more mysterious and divine that's occurring within those connections, within those decisions, within those conversations. I mean, how many times have we gone into conversations with someone, and we, or done some kind of a presentation, and we thought that we were showing up to do this thing. This was the thing that we were showing up to do. But like in hindsight, we realized that like that wasn't the thing that we were doing at all. It was actually something completely different that was connected to that grand vision, or to empowering others, or making those connections with other factions that we are, that we were dealing with. So, to answer the question, for me, it's really embracing that spiritual piece, and not beating ourselves up when we forget, because I am a human being. And I'm going to tell you right now that I can throw one of the biggest cussing fits like ever. But after I have that, after I get that out, then it's also coming back and saying, okay, that's my human self. Like my ego is activated right now. I am feeling like there's a threat, and that's to keep me safe. Now what? Now, how do I want to shift this? How do I want to consciously choose to show up? And then forgiving myself for being angry, or for, saying things that I really don't mean. But then also being able to step right into that authentic place of, what might I be missing here? And what might this other person be here to teach me? Sometimes one of the things I think I've learned, or I'm learning, or I will continue to learn, is that some of the people who have irked me the most are the ones that are my teachers. And so asking myself, what is the lesson here that this person is showing up to teach me, has helped me to have humility, to be able to say, you know, maybe they're showing me what I don't want to be like. You know, maybe they're showing me that I have power, and that my power is to help influence them and to find their power. And so it's really about, to me, that spirituality piece is getting out of being the victim and moving in and embracing, like, what is the divine, whatever you call that, what is that here? How would God show up? And what can I do to be that voice, to be those hands, to be to be that in this space? And that's some hard work.
Definitely.
When-
Thank you so much. Tammy, go ahead. Did you have something you wanted to say?
It's funny you talk about moving out of victimhood. That's I'm in the Pearl sequence in the Gene Keys right now in the retreat, and that's what it's all about, is looking at your specific design and moving from the victim, your shadow side, you know, through the your gift to the city and all that. The same thing. So it's coming at me at all sides, from all sides. It's just really cool. So thank you.
Right. And Kathy, when you were talking, what came to me is you talked about getting when you get defensive or when a part feels threatened. So that makes me think of, when I think of the connection between leadership and spirituality, I think of internal family systems or parts work, which is a beautiful model that could be incorporated in organizations or any place where people want to be a leader, because the goal of parts work is for the person to be able to connect with and live from what is called self. And self, you can replace that with whatever word makes or phrase makes sense to you. You might call yourself a wise, that aspect of you, a wise one, or you're or an observer. But when we are able to connect with and live from self, we can realize if another part of it, a victim part, gets activated, we realize that, and we can then step out of that role, get connected to self, and self will have compassion for the part that's feeling like a victim, and self can help the victim part transform with patience and persistence. And to me, the ultimate, most beautiful way that this could show up would be in an organization where a person could say, oh, I just realized, when you said such and such, my victim part got activated. And so I noticed that I didn't show up the way that I wanted to. And I'd like to, let's have a conversation about this so that people can show up more transparently, more openly. And it could just be a culture where the spiritual growth is encouraged and invited, because people feel safe enough to acknowledge that, for some reason they got triggered or activated. And instead of the person who's in charge, the supervisor or whatever, saying, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you being productive? Why aren't you, whatever, getting your paperwork done? But realizing, okay, there's something going on with this person. They're not showing up. They're not meeting expectations. And I wonder why. So Kathy, I think you talked about both courage and curiosity. And those are qualities. We can tell that we're coming from self. So self it's an aspect of us that is whole and complete and has never been and can never be damaged. And there are 8 qualities that are present when we're connected to self, and they are calmness and curiosity, that desire to connect with other people and things. And we're connected to that aspect of ourselves when we have compassion and when we feel caring towards another person. And it's also when we can be really creative, then we know that we're connected with self. And as I mentioned before, courage is a quality of self, and also clarity. So when we have great clarity, and I think it's like seeing the bigger picture. And I just think that my dream would be for organizations to embrace this and create this kind of culture where we can all acknowledge that we have parts, and that sometimes our parts get triggered and we're not going to show up the way that we want to, and supporting each other to grow and to give ourselves the grace to step into the connection with self.
Thank you, Tamara. That was really beautiful. Another piece of that to add to self is that when I personally know that I am connected with that self, it doesn't matter what kind of challenges are before me, I feel great joy. And it's the only place where I really feel that kind of joy of I am manifesting who I am supposed to be in this moment. And that is, and it takes a lot of courage. It does take a lot of courage as well.
I agree. I love that addition of joy to the list. There are some P words that are connected with self too. The only one I think patience is one. I know playfulness is one too. So when we can be a little bit playful and not taking ourselves and the situation so seriously, that can really help too. So we thought another good question to explore would be ways that we, outside of the box ways that we can hone our skills as a leader. So Kathy and I have some ideas about this. Tammy, before we share though, I'm curious if you have some things that you would like to share, some ways that you hone your skills as a leader. I know I heard you talking about the course that you're taking.
Yeah. Always learning, if you're not learning, what I just think we should always be learning. And I think just practicing, in every, well, maybe not every, but every conversation you have, every interaction you have, you can get feedback, in your mind, not necessarily from the other person, but from yourself, as to how to hone those skills. I mean, it can just be in every interaction, like just out walking my dog, being a leader, a good leader to him, and looking at those triggers and why did those triggers come up, like you guys were talking about earlier, and looking deep into myself to see where and why any triggers came up, to move to a more expanded reality. That's you had mentioned something similar to that earlier. Expanding reality is one of the things that I'm assisting others to do now, to expand no matter where they are, to expand their reality into more. I mean, because there's always more. It's always expanding. So I just think that can be even with self, just sitting here, putting a puzzle together, that can hone leadership skills, because you're seeing the pieces go together, and our life is pieces. That's how I see my life going together. I gather pieces just with you guys and with everything around me going on. I gather pieces together to put this puzzle together, and I look at just each piece at a time. I don't even know what the picture looks like until I'm all done, and it's like, oh yeah, I forgot to, what does the picture look like, and then I have to go back and look, because I do in each individual piece. I never look at the picture as I'm putting the puzzle together. So to me, it's putting those pieces together, and that's honing leadership. I think it's just done all the time.
I love that. That is beautiful. And I love the analogy of a puzzle. And I've often thought that when I look back and think, okay, so why did I learn about desktop publishing? Or why did I learn this? Why did I learn that? And then, but where I'm at now, I can see where all the pieces fit together. And it also reminds me of a beautiful poem that someone shared with me that's called The Weaver. And it talks about how, if you look at the underside of a weaving, like in a tapestry, sometimes the underside looks a lot different. And so, the creator can see the big picture. We might see the underside and we're like, why am I having this experience? But to just trust that the pieces will all come together.
Yes, I love that thinking about it as a tapestry and what that looks like underneath, because sometimes there's a lot of work underneath, that we don't see in that big picture, and I love that you said too, trusting the experience, and just really embracing it. One of the post-it notes of many that I've had on my computer at times is the serenity prayer. And God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think that's kind of how I got the unicorn writer, as well, is that I had a lot of people telling me, like, child welfare has always been dysfunctional and always will be. And I was like, that's not acceptable. I will not accept that as an answer. And so, do I have the power to change the whole system? No. Am I, but do I have the power to use my voice in positive ways? And we all have. I used to tell my kids this when they were little, a lot, when, they would, get activated or be upset. And I would say, you have the power to use to use your voice and to use your power for good or for bad. And you always will be able to choose that. You always have that choice. And so, I think that, as we become adults and, we're out doing the things and the cultures, that we are working in, we sometimes forget that. And so, some unique ways is, asking yourself, are you using your voice, and your power for good? Are you contributing to the very problem that you're upset with? I see this a lot right now on Facebook, with, people being drawn towards one side or the other, but, not reflecting on themselves and how are they showing up and what does that look like for them? And are they contributing to the very problem that they're upset about? And so, a couple of unique ways that, to hone skills as a leader is, for me, one of those big ones is we talked about creating a safe space, but creating a safe space is more than just saying, I say that the space is safe. It is doing the little things, all the time. I always kind of think about it like a job interview, that, in a job interview, you're showing your best self, you want to show all the things, but like really our whole lives are kind of like a job interview. We just forget that. And it's not just a job interview. It's our leadership skills. It's telling others that we are creating a safe space. And one of the ways to do that, that I have is that is assuming positive intent. And that one can be a hard pill to swallow sometimes when we get activated. But, you know, assuming positive intent and giving grace to others, you know, one of the things that I practiced, and it is a practice, you know, Tammy, you had brought that up, you know, that just the practicing. One of the things that I, you know, had done was, you know, I'd find myself being like, oh, that person, you know, they're sending an email, they made a mistake, you know, they forgot to attach something. And I got to the point where instead of just like noticing that or being irritated about that, I would actually celebrate it. You know, and I worked from my home office, so there was nobody else here to like know that I was celebrating, but also that playful piece, right, Tamara, that you've talked about. And so I'd be like, woohoo, you made a mistake. Yay, you're a human being just like me, just like everybody else, you know. And then like when I would have conversations with people and they would make a mistake or something, or they'd be like, I'm really sorry, I dropped the ball. And I was like, that's all right. That means you're human. You know, I'm human too. I dropped the ball as well. But, you know, giving grace to people, and lightening that, you know, experience of that, you know, we're professional, we're supposed to be showing up, you know, in this way. And so another thing, you know, that you talked about, Tammy, as well, is that you talked about practicing and learning. And for me, it part of that leadership is practicing my leadership skills by teaching what I'm learning. And so one of the things I did at the organization that I was at was I had gone to some leadership trainings, and then I always said I was so in alignment with it that I was so nerded over it that I basically started doing lunch and learns for my organization, and kind of helped to bring that about. And then there was other people who joined in with that, but we did lunch and learns over those leadership skills. And so that was a way that I practiced what I was learning, and, you know, and I got to hear other people's thoughts on things as well, and got to really think about it. And then the other thing I would say about, you know, unique ways of honing my skills as a leader, and this is definitely out of the box, Tamara, but it's following those shiny baubles. So, you know, when you have, you know, something that comes about and you think like, well, that's really cool, I'd like to know more about that. Actually following that, because there might be something there. It's kind of like turning over a rock in the forest and being like, is there anything under it? Oh, look, there's spiders, and there was worms, and there was roly-polies, and there was a centipede. You know, there's a lot of life under that. And so following those shiny baubles is definitely one of those ways that I have practiced my leadership, because what that has given me is that has shown me where I'm supposed to connect, who I'm supposed to connect with, and also giving those pieces to me that you had talked about with like those puzzle pieces. And so it'd be like, oh, I found another piece that I was looking for. And then, you know, how I'm going to apply this, I don't know yet. I just know that I'm really drawn to this and it's really exciting. And, you know, but putting the piece there and not knowing what that picture is going to look like.
Great.
Love that.
Yeah, thank you.
And like the tapestry, Tamara, that you were talking about on the bottom, sometimes it's really, really messy and so beautiful on top.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly.
Tamara, I thought the other one I said that I was going to share that I forgot to share was the going through. I have 3 questions on my dry erase board in my office, and it says, can I, may I, should I? And so that was a huge thing for me to like pause and ask myself, can I, you know, because yes, I can do this. I might not be able to do this whole thing, but I can do this one piece of this. And then my next question would be, may I? I mean, should I? Can I, may I? And then my may I would be like, yes, like this would be a place that you could step into. Yes, I might get a yes on that. But then the next one would be, should I? And then that was the one where, sometimes I might get 2 yeses and a no. And the no might be because no, should I? When I'd be like, well, why shouldn't I? And, that what I would come up with was that it wasn't the right time yet, or I wasn't the right person to say that. I needed somebody else to say it. And then I could come in and help support them, and help elevate that. And so, the should I is really important, as well as the can I and may I.
Thank you both so much. So the next part of what we wanted to focus on today is about some leadership practices, leadership outside the box practices that we know about. And Kathy, I loved it when you were talking about following shiny baubles. This isn't one that I actually have on the slides, but I just wanted to quickly mention that is like a practice that I've learned about. And this is also building on what you said about teach what you learn. So I just completed a really awesome nature connected coach training. And this is a practice I've done actually outside of that or before that, but it is like following shiny baubles, because you ask a question, you go out in nature and you pay attention to the shiny baubles and you go and explore that. And before you do that, you start with an intention, and it's a powerful way to get guidance from the universe, I guess is a way of saying it. So that's a bonus one that's not on here. So, but Kathy and I are each going to share 3 practices that we think can help people develop and hone their leadership skills outside the box. So the first one that I'd like to share with you is called turtle mode. And with this practice, you just really go out in nature and you walk a lot more slowly than you normally would. And then you just begin to notice who and what is in motion around you. And this practice really just helps you quiet your mind and learn to observe things, because sometimes we will go outside and we see a bunch of green. And so sometimes my instructor in the course called it a wall of green. So really break down that wall of green and what are the little pieces there. And when you learn to do that in nature, then you can learn to do that with the people around you. So, we think we know somebody, and like that's the wall of like my husband, for instance, and I think I know him, and but I'm not really seeing, what's going on inside of him. What are the little things that are going on with him? So I think this is a great practice that we can use to hone our skills as leaders. This one is called, I call it Ripples in the Pond. And it kind of builds on the one that I was talking about before. Each of us has, like, places in nature have what's called a baseline. So there's another practice that we do in nature connected coaching is I help people choose a sit spot and just go out there every day and get familiar with what is normal. For like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, what's normal for that place? That's the baseline. So when I come into that baseline, I create ripples in the pond. And if I sit there long enough, though, it will, just like, if there's not continuous things dripping in a pond, the ripples will settle. And that's what happens with people too. So if I know somebody really well, my supervisor or a colleague or just anyone that I want to be in connection with, then I can learn what their baseline is. And I can notice when there's ripples, when they're not showing up the way that they normally do. And I can learn to be sensitive to that and speak to that and respond to that from a place of leadership. This one I really love. This one is called Vision Counsel. And this one is so powerful. So the best way to do it is just to get very quiet and to just set the intention that you're going to tap into wisdom and vision. And then think about people and places and things that represent wisdom to you. And then just practice imagining that they're present. You know, you could be sitting around a campfire, they could be standing behind you or in front of you, whatever makes sense to you. And then just get in the habit of learning to ask them for guidance and support, just like you would like if you were in a mastermind group. So you just ask your question. You can do this on a wander too. So you can ask your question, go for a wander, ask your vision counsel to walk with you, and just see what shows up. It's a really powerful way to get guidance and support. So I wanted to share that with you because I am learning about it and I think it's an amazing practice.
I got to jump in here, Tamara, and tell you that those were awesome ways. And the vision counsel is so powerful. I have used that. And, you know, it almost feels kind of silly, you know, the first time you do it, you're kind of like, I don't know about this, you know, but it was so incredibly powerful that I cried, you know, even though I had started, you know, with this whole, like, I don't know about this, this feels kind of, you know, a little bit out there. But yes, I have found it to be really useful.
Thank you for sharing that. I want to just respond to that quickly before you share your thought. So in the training that I just did, I also, we practiced sending our vision counsel to a partner. They sent theirs to me and I sent mine to them. And their description of what they experienced of my counsel was so incredible because when we first practiced this, you might sense the individual members of your counsel, but then they kind of form a whole and they create some kind of it's like a shared presence. And he said, his description was so amazing. He said, his was like a campfire. And he said he gradually felt that disappear. And then there was this thick gray fog or mist that came. And it was so thick at first he couldn't see anything. And then he felt this massive presence there. And it was so big that it really scared him. And so he wasn't sure what to do. So he said, I called out, show yourself. And so he could then kind of get a sense of this kind of snake-like creature, but he said it also had a wing, and the creature allowed him to touch the wing. I think that was probably so he wouldn't be so afraid. And when he described that to me, I thought, oh, dragon. And Tammy, I know you'll like this because you've sensed dragon energy at my place, at my retreat center. So I was so excited when he said that because I thought, wow. And the message that he got was the capacity, I can't remember the word, the capacity for power or leadership or something is so vast, if only it will be recognized. And I thought, wow, that's really cool.
That is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That's like, I just got like goosebumps like all over my body. It's like,
Me too.
I was like, oh, that's a shiny bauble. I'm going to try that.
A big shiny bubble.
Yeah.
Can I
awesome.
say something real quick too about that?
Absolutely.
When you were talking about that, about the smoke or clouds or whatever, remember when I was talking to your pups? They talked licorice talked that came into the session with licorice.
That's right.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, I remember, because I could see that anyway. Go ahead.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and I love the pictures that you chose as well, Tamara, on the PowerPoint. So thank you for that. Those are really very like vibrant and meaningful. So one of my ways of outside the box practice is I'm going to say that be like fungi in your leadership. Fungi are among the most widely distributed organisms on Earth and are of great environmental importance. And so you need to be everywhere and be thinking about everyone. And then also fungi are free living. They live in the soil, they live in water. And so, part of that is being like knowing what is going on at all the levels of your leadership mission. What are people experiencing on the front lines? What are clients experiencing? What is middle management experiencing? What is the C-level experiencing? What are the other people who are interacting with you or that you want to interact with you experiencing? And so really like just having those spores of like, everywhere and in the soil and in the water. And fungi are everywhere in very large numbers. So fungi find others that are also on that same mission, that have that same hope and those same visions, because your power is strong, but also in very large, there that there's other people. One of the things I say is that if we're experiencing it, then we know that others are experiencing it as well. And so finding those large numbers. I'm looking forward to what this picture is going to look like, Tamara. Ah, nice. So this one is resemble the rainforest canopy in your leadership. Be strategic in your dominance over the forest, but also create such a nurturing environment that life is sustainable and abundant throughout the forest. Seek to umbrella the environment that you are planted in by understanding and overarching the themes at play. I think that one's really important because, it's like, it's being strategic, but it's also like understanding that umbrella of what is going on at all levels above you, and being able to see below. And so that is an important practice. And then also be amazing and brilliant in your own unique skills and gifts. Really stepping into that courage of, what does your heart call you? What is your heart aching to say? What is your heart aching to do? Really listening to that and honoring that space and knowing that like that is a message. You think about the roots of the trees and the canopies up high, but also the roots go so deep down into, so really listening to like, what is it that you're being called to do? What are you being called to say? Where are you being called to show up? And honoring that, because the more you honor those spaces, the more that the universe says, okay, this person here is listening, and we're gonna give more. And so it's like those steps once again on that path. And so the last one that I wanted to share was I call it spider webbing. So you're weaving together connections for those that you work with by promoting and connecting them with items and people of interest. So, anytime that I am talking with someone, if something comes up that like kind of, I go, I think that, I know about this thing and they might be interested in that, then I share those connections. And what I found is is that not only is that meaningful to them, but also I'm weaving those connections, within the community, within what I am leading, what my mission is. And it's really powerful. And create webs for promoting your leadership goals by marketing your mission. So, promoting your leadership goals is every time you're speaking with someone who's kind of interacting with whatever that leadership mission that you have is, it's also promoting what that vision looks like for you. They talk a lot about elevator, having the elevator speech. So, being able to share that with people and let them know that, like, this is a possibility. It's not, we don't have to continue to do that same thing that doesn't work. Like we have, and here's what that might look like. And then constructing unique webs by collaborating with others. And so, you never know what that web's going to look like when you start making those connections, and they become really unique webs. And when you're working with others and asking others to share with you. And then the other one that I have is make creative connections by exploring outside of your industry or your field. So explore other webs. Look at what's going on in other places. I believe that, we have a very complex world, and we have very complex society, and we have very complex governments, and everything's needed. And so, it might not be your thing that you're like drawn to, but listening, if it falls in your lap, or it comes across, just kind of giving a moment to be like, that's happening. That's part of what's going on. Like, I'm not an IT person by any means, but I find it fascinating. And that there's so many things that need to be done to keep things running right. And I know that in the city that I live in, there's a lot of construction going on one of our main thoroughfares, and they were doing a lot of dirt work. And I remember just watching every time I go down the street of like, wow, like they're like, how do they even figure that out? Like, how do they know where to start digging and where to like put that? But watching that has helped me with understanding like what some of those things, I still don't know what that looks like to do road construction, but it helps me to think about, when I show up as a leader in an area, and this is the first time I've seen, this is maybe the first time this idea has come up, or this new thing that I'm looking at is trying to come forward, that it really is about looking at, it's doing dirt work, and part of that dirt work, it's messy. And so, that's helped me with weaving a connection to like what it's like at the very start of a project.
Thank you so much, Kathy.
Yeah, thank you.
Amazing practices.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Oh, you're welcome. So I want to talk just a couple minutes. I mean, the formal training is ended now, but there are a couple of things that I want to share with you in case you might be interested. But if you've got to go, I know we're a little bit over an hour, so if you have to go, that's understandable. But Kathy, going back to what you said about practicing, teaching what you've learned, I think is what you said, and I love that, and I'm so excited about the things that I have learned, and I really want to share them with people. And really the three main areas of outside the box leadership that I know about are nature and art and parts work. And so that's going to be my focus for the next, probably, I don't know, at least the next year, I'm pretty sure. So I wanted to invite you, if you're interested, to take part in, I'm calling it, you know how Facebook has these 5-day challenges? And I kind of like that, but I thought I want to call mine a quest. So I'm hosting a 5-day quest in December from the 6th through the 10th. And the focus will be leadership outside the box through nature, because I really want to share, you know, some of the practices that I talked about today. When we do this quest, I'll introduce, it'll be a Zoom call like today, but I'll introduce a practice. We'll actually go out in nature and do the practice, and then we'll come back in and explore it together and talk about what we learned. I think it's going to be incredible. I'm really excited about it. And if you want to find out more, you can, just visit my website, and there's a button that you can click on that will take you to the sign up. We really wanted to leave a little bit of time for question and answer. I know that we've been, sharing a lot during the presentation today, but I'm just curious, does anybody have any questions that you want to ask or thoughts that you want to share?
Tamara, would you share what your website is?
Yes, my website is www, of course, thewilddivine.us.
And so on the quest, is it going to be how many hours a day is that 5-day quest? And I love that you picked quest.
I know. Thank you. Yeah, so it's just going to be an hour a day, because I know people have, you have the rest of your life that's going on too. But that I found, that's a good amount of time for us to, to introduce the concept of the practice. You can go out and do the practice, and then we can have a discussion. And then you can try, maybe you want to try it again on your own and take it even deeper and spend more time out there.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you for those questions. If you think of questions that you haven't thought about, feel free to shoot me an email. My email address is just mindfultamara with all A's @gmail.com. So feel free to shoot me an email if you have a question. I wanted to end with this quote I thought was so neat. So this is an organization that I just found, the Center for Nature and Leadership. I just found it when I was preparing this webinar, and I haven't had a chance to explore it yet. But I really love this quote. The secret to creating inspired change in yourself and your communities isn't to simply push yourself harder. It's to stop and listen.
Oh, that is powerful. Yeah. Wow. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I just thought that would be a great thing to end with, because I think, it's just so important for us to stop and listen and continue to grow our leadership skills, because I think my new tagline is going to be, we are the ones that we've been waiting for. And not being in that victim mode, but really stepping into our power and helping to transform the things about society that aren't working. Patricia Cota-Robles says that the divine patterns are there for us now. They've been placed in the earth somehow. And all we need to do to be able to access those patterns of perfection is just to tune in and just get quiet, tune in and listen. So
I love that.
And create our own visions through visions and
exactly.
And expand them, because it can always be expanded.
Exactly.
Yes. So Tamara, if somebody is joining later on, and watching this, how might they also, besides going to your website, how might they also be able to connect with you? Like, are you on Facebook? Do you do you have Twitter? Mm-hmm. And also my other question for you is that I know that you do coaching, because I have done coaching with you and you are absolutely amazing. And so you do coaching, you'll take clients from, outside, will you do virtual clients as
Great.
well?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you for those questions.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so I'm trying to have a big social media presence. So I am on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram right now.
Great.
And I also have a YouTube channel. So people can access me any of those ways. And you can email me and I can give you those handles. And then in terms of coaching out, yes, so I can work with anyone around the world because the virtual coaching sessions are great. So you can be in your space and I can be in mine. And you don't even have to be outside because you can get connected with nature just by looking outside or by getting in touch with a powerful time in nature. And so amazing transformation can happen, just as illustrated in my experience with my practice partner. He was in Canada and I was here in Colorado when that happened. So you don't need to be physically next to each other or in the physical space for the transformation to happen.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, thank you for asking those questions. Those are great questions.
Absolutely, yes. Okay. Well, thank you so much for asking me to join you today, Tamara. It was an absolute delight. Tammy, I'm so glad you showed up and shared as well. It was really a joy to be here. Thank you.
Thank
It
you.
was for me too. Thank you very much. It was wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, thank you. I just want to thank you both for being here. I loved hearing your ideas and sharing in your amazing energy. And I look forward to seeing how our puzzles continue to come together and how we continue to step into embodying our full potential as leaders.
Yes, me too. Thank you.
All right. Bye for now.